So the Global Talent Visa is an absolutely awesome visa for you if you are a software engineer and you want to come live and work in the UK. And actually this visa is not reserved only for geniuses, and it's much easier to get than you might think. If you're interested in the Global Talent Visa and how you can get it, please continue watching. Hey everyone, this is Nadia, a software engineer living and working in London. I was endorsed for the Global Talent Visa in July 2022, and recently I've been posting a lot of videos describing how you can build a strong case to get the visa. So those videos now appear on your screen. Make sure to watch them if you're interested. So just a little reminder, when it comes to the Global Talent Visa, there are a couple of criteria that you need to fulfill. So first there is the mandatory criteria, and I have two separate videos on how you can fulfill the mandatory criteria. And then there are 4 optional criteria, and you only need to choose 2 of them that you prove that you fulfill. I have already put out a video about the first criteria, the innovation one, and this video today is actually about the second optional criteria that you can choose to fulfill. It is called the outside contribution criteria. In this criteria, you need to prove that you have been recognized for your contribution to the field of digital technology outside of your immediate occupation. This is a very important distinction here. Whatever documents you submit, they have to be proof of things that you have done outside of work. So, for example, if you have mentored somebody during work hours, this is not eligible for this kind of criteria. Or if you have organized like a massive technical conferences within work hours, again, this is not something that you can submit here. This is still cool, and you can still submit those things within your application and kind of mention them in your CV and other documents, but those kind of documents won't really help you fulfill this particular criteria. This one is about the things that you have done outside of work, and ideally things that you haven't been paid for. Let me share 5 ways for you to fulfill this criteria. Number 1 is being a volunteer in an organization related to digital technology. This is very, very important. For instance, if you have volunteered in an organization that is doing something really great in the world, for instance, saving animals or something like that, but this charity is not really related to digital technology. So even if you have built a web app, for instance, for a charity that does something like that, this isn't something that you can submit to the Tech Nation in this case. So if you submit a document like that, they will probably answer that this evidence is admirable and like this is great that you have done it, but it's not eligible. So please remember that your volunteering has to be done for an organization that is related to the field of digital technology. So an easy example is finding a charity or an NGO that is related to promoting the causes of digital tech and making the field of technology more attractive to other people. So an organization where I'm a lead volunteer is called Women Who Code, and this is an organization that is helping women and supporting women who work in tech, work in STEM. So you can find an organization that is doing something similar or promoting a cause in tech that you feel passionate about. You can reach out to them, ask them whether they need volunteers, in which capacity can you be helpful. It's usually very straightforward. Most of those organizations, they actually rely on volunteers to do most of the work, and the budgets are usually very small. So if you reach out to the organizers of a particular NGO, they most likely will be very happy to accept you as a volunteer, and they will tell you much more about what kind of help they actually need right now. Number 2 is being a mentor in tech. So according to the Tech Nation Visa Guide, this mentoring has to be done as part of an organized program where there are selection criteria. So ideally, you should find a charity or an NGO that is looking for mentors and that has a selection process and that is actually kind of checking the people who apply to be mentors. So in my case, I volunteered as a career mentor or a personal development mentor at a charity called Code Your Future, which is an organization that teaches refugees and people from underprivileged backgrounds to code. I was actually not teaching them to code. I was helping them gain the professional skills that they need to be successful in their future software engineering careers, things like presentation skills, soft skills, negotiation skills, feedback giving skills, and all of that fun stuff. You can also volunteer to be a mentor who's actually teaching people to code. Again, there are a lot of organizations like that all over the world, and you should just look for an organization that has a mission that appeals to you and something that you can relate to. There are other ways to mentor people as well through platforms like the one that I'm using. So I'm a mentor on a platform called Meet a Mentor. This is a UK-focused mentorship platform where you apply to be a mentor, then you become a mentor, and then other people can actually apply to be mentees, and they can specify which criteria in mentors they're looking for, and then you're being matched to a mentor on this platform. So this is also something that you can do. There are a bunch of platforms like that all over the world. Just find something that appeals to you, find some cause that maybe resonates with you. Like, we all have different passions in life, we all have different beliefs, so I'm sure that you can find something that you have always maybe wanted to contribute to, but you never kind of had this external push to do that. So this video is your push to do that and kind of start giving back to the community by being a mentor. And this is completely unrelated, but being a mentor is the ultimate reward and experience. So this is one of the most high impact things I think that you can do by spending like just a little bit of time, maybe a couple of hours per week or per month, helping somebody, mentoring them, helping them break into tech. So what I've been doing, I've been helping people who are now switching into technology and looking for their first job in tech to find jobs in tech. So, and this is so rewarding. It's super easy to do, I think. And this is something that I would definitely recommend for you to do, like outside of context of the global talent visa, just for you, just for your experience, for your own karma. But also it can help you build a much stronger case for the global talent visa, which is a nice benefit to have. Number 3 is community work. This can be community work online or offline, but this has to be work in communities related to tech. So there are a couple of ways to think about it. So you can participate in organizing communities in real life. So you can participate in organizing meetups or other kinds of study groups, for instance, related to coding or anything like that. Or you can also do online communities. I think this is somewhat easier because it requires less time. So what you can do is there are a couple of things that you can do. So you can either start your own community, so you can start your own Facebook group, your own meetup group, your own Telegram chat, or whatever else you prefer, a Discord server, or whatever you like. And then you can also join an existing group. I think this is easier, and also it's more rewarding because you join a community where there are people already, and you can ask the moderators of that community, the organizers of that community, whether they need help moderating the group, posting something, or just managing the community. And this way you can become the co-organizer of a community, a co-moderator of it. I think this is something that is also very easy to do. For instance, if you are more introverted and you don't really feel like interacting with people in real life and organizing in real life events, going online and joining a Facebook group, I think that's something that is pretty manageable. And in a lot of those popular groups, the moderators are really overwhelmed by how much they have to do, so they will really appreciate your help. Number 4 is organizing technical events or volunteering at an existing technical events. Again, you can see a pattern here. There are things that you can start doing yourself, which might be more fun if you're looking for more autonomy and you kind of want to start your own thing. Then, all power to you. But then they also take a lot of time, and it's just much more work. If you don't have that much time, and maybe you're not that interested in spending, so much effort on doing something like that, you can join things that already exist. So, for instance, you can look for technical conferences that are coming up in your area, or online technical conferences. There are still a bunch of them happening, and you can find the one that is interesting to you. So, in my personal experience, the issue with conferences is that they are usually very expensive, but the talks themselves aren't like all that great. So maybe there will be a couple of talks that I want to listen to, and then the rest of them are just not really interesting for me. But I still have to pay the full price. And I think that the technical conferences are really not affordable to a lot of software engineers unless your company is prepared to pay for a ticket. So a nice little hack that I have found to go into technical conference that you can't really afford is being a volunteer at a technical conference. So I have volunteered at a technical conference this year called DevOps UK. Which was a very interesting and fulfilling experience for me in a bunch of ways. And this is something that you can do as well. Find a conference that looks interesting to you. reach out to the organizers, say that you are willing to volunteer for them and help them with the conference. And it's very likely that they will be very happy that somebody reached out to them, because again, a lot of those conferences rely on volunteers, and without volunteers, there are no conferences really. In exchange for volunteering, you will be allowed to listen to some of the conference talks, and how much it depends on the conference. And then what you're expected to do also depends on the conference, but usually they need help with monitoring the attendance in the rooms where the technical talks are, being on the registration desks, and just doing basic admin work during the conference. This is something that you will be required to do. However, you will also get to meet a lot of fellow volunteers. You will get to listen to a lot of interesting talks. You will just get to enjoy this whole experience. So I think that overall, it's just such an amazing way to spend time, to give back to the community, to gain a new experience, to learn something new, to meet new people, and also at the end of it, as like a little bonus, have something that you can potentially submit as part of your documents to the Global Talent Visa. And number 5 is open source. So if you are very careful and you have listened to all of my previous videos on this visa, which you totally should do, you might have noticed that I already mentioned open source. And yes, it wasn't a mistake, it's actually intentional. So according to the TechNation Visa Guide, you can use open source to both prove the mandatory criteria and the second optional criteria, the outside contribution criteria that I'm talking about in this video. So what it means is that depending on the other documents that you have, depending on how strong they are and like how strong your overall case is, you can either use open source as proof of the optional criteria or the mandatory ones. Don't worry too much about it right now. I will talk about how you structure your documents in more detail in a later video. For now, I think it would only serve to confuse you, but just remember that open source is something that is so cool, and you can use it to kind of prove a lot of different things in this case. So if you have already contributed to open source, you can use that. If you have never contributed to open source, my previous tips, they still apply. You can just start doing it. Like, it's permissionless. You can start contributing to open source pretty much today. If you have time in the evening, you can start doing it. So the way to do it is to find libraries and repositories that you are interested in. Maybe something small, not like the most kind of popular library in the world. So there is like less competition to submit pull requests, but something that isn't really that, so that they still accept contributions. You can start small by fixing small bugs, small open issues, if you can think of solutions. You can also improve documentation, and you can find bugs in documentation. Or, if you're going through the README of a library that you're using and you see that something doesn't work because they have maybe missed a certain setup step, you can actually submit a pull request just fixing that markdown README file. And it's super easy. If you are already using open source libraries, you can do that at any moment when you're using them, and this will maybe only take you a couple of minutes of time. But this is also contributing to open source. So when you hear the word open source, you shouldn't be intimidated and think that open source means that you need to go there and create like your own library that is used by millions of people. This isn't the case at all. So you just need to find ways to contribute in the way that you can, and build up your contributions over the upcoming months as you start building your case for the Global Talent Visa. And finally, imagine that you have already done those things that I mentioned, maybe all of them or maybe some of them. So how do you actually prove that you have done it, and like which documents do you actually submit to the TechNation? So there are a couple of ways to think about it. So there is one document that you can always use to prove basically anything. It's the reference letter from a person who is kind of established in the industry. In this case, you can get a reference letter from the organizer of the charity that you volunteered for, or maybe the organizer of the technical conferences where you were a volunteer as well, or the organizer of a technical community, the moderator of it, or something like that. So basically somebody who represents a certain entity where you contributed. So they can write a letter with the logo of the organization saying that you have been a mentor, a volunteer, or whoever you were, and just going through the achievements that you have completed and kind of things that you have done as a volunteer. So this is very easy, and this usually works. However, I wanted to stress that the technician really wants to see something in addition to the reference letter. So sometimes they mention that the reference letters are not enough. And when people submit their documents and like 99% of the documents are just reference letters, it's not the strongest evidence that you can have. So what I suggest you do is find other ways to prove that you have actually done the volunteering, the mentoring, or whatever else you have been doing. And there are like a ton of ways to do that. Just be as creative as you can. If any trace of your volunteering is online, if there is a picture online, if there is a YouTube recording or some other kind of trace of it online, grab a screenshot, save the link, and you can use that as proof. You can also grab a screenshot of a Slack cabinet if your organization uses Slack, or another kind of cabinet, personal cabinet and admin side of things where it's visible that you're actually a volunteer or a member or a mentor. If you volunteer in person, you should always be asking people to take pictures of you volunteering or mentoring somebody in person. If there are emails that you have from the organizers of a conference saying that thank you so much for volunteering and helping us make this conference a success. Maybe there are like public mentions of you as a volunteer. Just grab screenshots of all of that, save that in a special folder on your computer or on a Google Drive so that you don't lose it. And I generally recommend doing that as soon as you have completed some sort of volunteering activity, because otherwise you might forget about it and then it might be difficult to get in touch with the organizers or something like that. Just as soon as you have done it, just grab screenshots and get proof. When it comes to open source, I think it's the easiest one and kind of more straightforward one. You just need to save the links to the pull requests that you have merged into open source repositories, and that's it. Overall, I think that this optional criteria is pretty easy to meet, and by easy, I mean that it's straightforward. It's not really open to interpretation as much as the previous one that I mentioned, the innovation one. So with innovation, there is no definition of what innovation means, so it's very easy for the technician to say that your contributions weren't really innovative in their view, so they just reject your application. So in this case, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of clear what you need to do in order to fulfill this criteria. And in this case, it's easy. It's not easy in the sense that you still need to spend a lot of time actually doing all those things, all the volunteering and the mentoring. But honestly, I think that this criteria is kind of the most fulfilling ones to actually fulfill, because it forces you to actually start giving back to the community if you have never done it. I think that a lot of us actually have this feeling that we should be doing more, we should be volunteering more, we should be helping more, and but we never have the time. There is always something else. There is always work. There is always like other commitments. There is always Netflix and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever. And I think that this is such a great moment and such a great excuse for you to go out there and start doing all of those wonderful things that you can be doing. You never know what will come out of it until you try helping others. And I think that ultimately it's just the most rewarding thing ever. In my volunteering, I have learned so much. I've met a lot of amazing people, and I have just been feeling really blessed to have the opportunity to give back to the community and kind of be a mentor for somebody, and kind of being the mentor that I didn't really have myself when I was learning to code. So I really hope that this video was useful and it gave you some ideas and inspiration for what you can start doing in order to meet this criteria further down the line when you start applying for the visa. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. And if you have more private questions and you want me to help you with the visa, please go to beetlehope.com/talent and I will help you out. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.